Welcome to this high and low film review stream. This is my first live stream, I think, on this channel. And then I invited some friends to come on and talk about this movie with me. It's Kurosawa's High and Low, which was released in 1963. He started making movies in 1943, and his last one was in 1993. So this is kind of in the middle. And he's pretty well known for samurai movies, and this is one of his non-samurai movies. So that's pretty much it for introduction. Spoiler alerts, we're going to talk about the movie. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend maybe go seeing it first. There definitely are some surprises in this one. But yeah, let me go ahead and add people to the stage here. There we go. Welcome, gentlemen.
Howdy.
Welcome to the High and Low review.
Good to see you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I think this first started kind of a little background is I started doing some stuff in this little corner of the internet and mentioned Kurosawa somewhere along the way. I think Noah had done a stream about Kurosawa, and then I mentioned something about it. I was like, well, that's cool. I love Kurosawa. And Matt's like, yeah, I've seen all of his stuff or most of his stuff. I was like, okay, yeah, we definitely need to talk about this. And then John Zepp, I don't know if you seen any of his movies before this one?
No, I hadn't. You were talking.
Okay.
We were talking about it. We were chatting about it somewhere, and you're like, "Oh, now you got to check it out." And that was my first. This is my first one I've seen. First Kurosawa. So
Okay.
very cool. Very cool. I was pleasantly surprised. It's pretty old, and subtitles and everything. I'm like a little bit of a steep slope there, maybe, but no, it pulled me right in.
Yeah. And Noah, you hadn't seen this one, right?
I had not seen High and Low yet.
Okay. And so High and Low has like a big surprise at the beginning where you learn that the main character's son is kidnapped, right? Is his name Gondo?
Yeah, the main character.
Yeah. So it does draw you in pretty quick. You're wanting to find out what happened. So I guess maybe we could just go around. Matt, you've seen this one before. When was the last time you saw High and Low?
This is probably what I was going through, like the whole like Janus Films repertoire that was then on Criterion about 12 years ago. So I was probably watching like 5 movies a night during grad school. So it was slotted right in. I just kind of rapid fire consumed this one and went on to the next one. It was nice to have a break from Kurosawa and then just come back and spend time exclusively with this film without so much of his other influences bumping right up against. I was joking in our chat leading up to this. I was already kind of picking up on the things you do when you watch Kurosawa, especially in rapid succession, like all the bit parts for all of his favorite actors. It's fun to catch them. For those of you who don't know, he basically has the same cast of like 8, 10, maybe 12 actors he likes to work with for like decades. and he found roles for most of them, so that was fun. And it's nice to be less impacted by those Easter eggs and just let the story capture you. I think you had mentioned, Risto, that this is probably his most noirish film.
Yeah, maybe after The Bad Sleep Well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was Bad Sleep Well. That was number 1.
Yeah.
And this one in particular, and again, it's good to like not just do a comparative analysis and let the film stand on its own. It was a good reminder of just how much the restrictions of the camera lens inform the restricted nature of the pacing and the dramatic acting and the how much acting has to happen really kind of find your spot on the floor, make the composition make the points at the beginning of the shot or at the end. He really wants to compose black and white paint and they're expected to dramatically, convey your character's emotion with very little, very often. He's going for a scenic compositional shot, and Kurosawa is less interested in what you want to do with your dynamic, expressive interpretations of the character. And I kind of appreciate that, especially for a movie like this about honor and dignity, and there's a lot of masculine reservation and then outbursts of emotion. Like that's a tension that is on full display in this movie. So the reserved nature of all these characters, with those occasional outbursts, particularly with the climax at the end, without spoiling that yet. That like emotion and the withdrawal from emotion is a character in itself, and that comes through in how he stages his shots. So that's what really stood out to me.
Yeah, he's kind of like Christopher Nolan, where he works with a lot of the same actors. He found the people that he liked and kept working with them. Um, I I first watched Kurosawa after I was done with college. I was home, had time on my hands after college, and this was like early internet days. So IMDb was like the movie website, and they had, I think, that like a top 250 or 200 or 100, I can't remember, but I looked at that list because I was like, I like movies, I should, what are the good ones? And I was like, it's Star Wars. I was like, oh yeah, I love Star Wars, The Godfather. And I try to remember if I had seen The Godfather at that point, but I recognize a few names, and then I'm like, Shichinin no Samurai. What in the world is that? There's like these Japanese, these foreign movies. I don't even know if I had seen a foreign movie at that point. So I was like, well, that's interesting. This one guy keeps showing up on the list. I'll have to go like check out some of his movies. And they had VHSs of Kurosawa at our library. And so then that was the falling down the rabbit hole of just checking those out from the library and watching them. And I didn't really love High and Low the first time. So I don't know if it was my age in life or what, but it was kind of meh for me back then. Noah, Zepp, would you guys give me your kind of reflections?
Like I watched it when you and I first chatted about it. I just watched it and just I didn't spend any time analyzing it or anything. But then when I think we brought it up in a week or two ago in a chat, I'm like, hey, let's actually talk about it. I watched it again with more of a critical eye and like I'm just see what's the big deal about this movie. And I saw a lot that I didn't see the first time. There's a lot of things, but you kind of experience it without paying attention to it. And then when I analyzed it a little bit, I thought, oh, okay, that's why that shot impacted me so much. Just simple shots, like it shows the house where he lives up on the hill, pans down. There's like a canal, reflection of the house in the canal with garbage floating in it, and then the scene just goes on. You're just like, wow, okay, it was like vertical down, and then it takes, and that kind of impacted me. I didn't really realize it the first time, but the second time I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah, and then I just got alerted to all these different shots and compositions and things that he was trying to say without dialogue, or without being too obvious. I'm like, oh man, this is, and then it really drew me in at that point. Where I'm like, okay, so you gotta pay attention to this, or you're gonna miss some of the depth. That was kind of my experience second time through. But like,
For
it's cool.
For me, I saw it for the first time last night. Had a little movie night, did a double feature of High and Low first, and then Dirty Work by Norm Macdonald. So that was an interesting combination.
That's a
The
good
link there,
juxtaposition, Noah.
the link there was fun because they're trying to figure out how to make money in Dirty Work, and somebody tells him you should just try to kidnap a like a celebrity's child to make the money.
That
I was like,
happens.
oh, that's our link for tonight.
No way.
But High and Low was really good. I think there's a bunch of little pieces that like strands that I wanted to pull on. Throughout the movie, there's just these kind of connections on like even TLC topics, but um, just like little symbolism things here and there. I think one of them that sticks out to me is like the kids in like playing cowboys, in the sense in which there's the Western kind of culture that's kind of sneaking in, and that was a fascinating kind of little glimpse into that. Um, I was also struck about how uh, slow yet like captivating it was. There were a lot of moments that kind of um, Kurosawa really took his time with. I was just like letting them kind of play out. We spent a lot of time in that house, uh, and it almost feels theatric in a way. Like there's this sense in which like this could be a play, at least for the beginning part of the movie. Um, and then as you kind of I don't know steer the direction away, there's the almost like the investigative side of the movie that also feels very. It almost feels like it's guaranteed, which is also an interesting side of it because there's not really a obvious danger, and all the police officers are kind of like, "We got this. Like we're gonna take him down," and they're all like cracking jokes and everything as they're kind of closing in on him. And it's just a very interesting dynamic of like the kind of swings of emotion that the movie go through.
Yeah, I thought the pacing for the first half was great. Like he does let it breathe and it builds the tension. It's perfect. The kind of the second half or the like maybe the last third of the movie, uh, I think needs a lot of editing. It kind of dragged on. I kind of got bored by that part. Um,
The scene where they're in the police precinct or whatever, and then they just
yeah,
one by one stand up and share a random piece of evidence, and then they
yeah,
sit down, and then somebody else stands up.
yeah. So yeah, Kurosawa wasn't perfect, I don't think. But for me, like why he's my favorite, why he's the GOAT for me, is because he really connects with like human elements, stuff like stuff
Mm.
that I can relate to in my life. So like Stray Dog, one of my other favorites, it's just like such an amazing picture of like how you deal with anxiety through the main character. So in this one, he's dealing with something else, which is for me why it captured me so much this time was you have a guy who's like midlife, he's got a family, he's got an empire. He's about to like unfold the things that he's worked hard for. He's not a bad guy. He's like a good guy, you know,
Mhm.
and he's all about like quality in the products and like he's not an evil person by any means. And then he's presented with this, are you willing to like give that all up for someone else's kid, you know? So just that choice, it's like a super Christian message for me, um, about sacrifice. And then he's like, he doesn't realize that now he's like caught in this prison of having to make that decision.
I I could be wrong. The impression I got of why the tonal shift happens between the first half and the second half is because they're trying to build up that tension that you're describing. Kurosawa is trying to demonstrate that he doesn't have to save the kid, but like the mandate of heaven is that he has to save the kid, but legally he doesn't have to. Maybe even by Western standards, he doesn't have to. Maybe there's a because oftentimes there's a subtle, um, still legal. When did the U.S. stop mandating what kind of themes they could do with their stories? I don't know if that was still happening by 1963, but he's often subtly saying like, "Hey, um, Japan's down, but it's not out, and we still have some things that we can respect about ourselves. We still have some dignity, and it's been papered over with this new culture that we've all decided to collectively adopt in a way to save face. So we're all dressing extremely Western, except our wives that we keep at home. So there's a private Japan, but publicly we're Western. But at the end of the day, uh, we hope that we have what it takes to do the honorable thing, which is to save an acquaintance's son, an employee's son, not just our own, and be and as a response, that our nation, who also still has dignity left in the reserve, would respond by making him a national hero, and other people coming in to say, okay, we're not exactly gonna forgive your debt. It's a heck of a lot of money. I looked it up. It's like $180,000 in current dollars, the 30 million yen. But we're going to give you all the room you need to complete the story, to complete, and then so the second half for me is them, um, because he's demonstrated that he has the mandate of heaven in a way, like because he's demonstrated that he has an ancient integrity that predates just the legal framework that they've collectively adopted in Japan. That that you're so excited to see, like the story kind of speeds up. They introduce you to the bad guy, which is kind of crazy. You never saw him, and he has no connection other than just this class struggle thing that you find out in the very final scene. But he's right. I think Kurosawa was writing on you. Just be excited for the situation to resolve itself in accordance with, to live up to the honorable decision that Mr. Gondo made by ruining his family's and his own life, his financial future, his business, everything he had, for the sake of somebody else's kid that he didn't even have a strong connection to. Because of that, then you're saying, well, I'll watch 45 minutes of a police procedural that's almost a non sequitur for the first half.
Well,
That's the gamble he makes, I guess, which is a risk, but
I think there's also the element of there's kind of the story that's happening in the background that's going on. There's the fact that the father of the child who gets kidnapped is in the background the entire time. The police officers aren't going to him consoling him. They're consoling the man who is going to have to give up his money or not give up his money. Like they're the one, he's the one that they're talking to. And they're putting attention towards. And then the end of the movie, the revelation of like who this like underground man is. He's somebody who's, from my understanding, pretty well off, right? Like he has a future ahead of him. He can make some money. He's in the medical field. And he's so focused on success and this kind of, I don't know if they would consider that being the Western ideal or if that's how they would frame it, but he got captured by it too. And so you have the two images of Gondo being willing to risk everything for the success to be able to take over the company, and you have this guy who's willing to risk everything in his life so he could, potentially kind of get another step up and get closer to that house and maybe pull him down in the process.
Yeah, it does kind of remind you a little bit of like communism and capitalism and the interplay between those two. It feels like Kurosawa chooses a third way. Like he's kind of sympathetic to the guy at the bottom and the guy at the top, but then he makes his character have to choose something entirely different. You know, and he does.
Later on,
Yeah.
doesn't he? Kurosawa becomes a communist, doesn't he? But not by
Oh,
the
really? I didn't know. I didn't know this lore.
I think it was about the time that he got exiled to Russia.
Yeah.
So it's complicated. It could be communism might be a consequence of his exile rather than a socioeconomic conviction that he had. But it is an interesting tension, to see, like Zepp mentioned, there's these subtle seeds of class struggle throughout the entire movie. Should a rich person help out a poor person? It's somebody he's employed with, and that gets progressively kind of um, brought into center stage. And by the second half, we're just looking at the way people live at the bottom of the hill, pretty much the entire time, which is in stark contrast to that house up on the top of the hill.
I couldn't help but think a little bit about, I don't know if you read Matthew Peugeot's book, where he talks about, one of the things he talks about for symbolism in the Bible is that, heaven is high, hell is low. And, it's interesting. The movie was originally called Heaven and Hell, but changed to High and Low in America, but it still works, right? It still works because of the verticality it puts into the movie. That kind of runs through all the background. I just thought it was really interesting. I think I noticed that more the second time through, how much he was baking that into the movie without. I liked one of the things I really liked about it is the way that he shot it was. I think he thinks highly of his viewer versus some of the more modern movies I see where they have to spell everything out. In case you didn't get it, we're going to hit you over the head with what this scene means. Or we may even have a narrator, talk over it to make you understand but in the movie, it's just like, no, here it is, hand down. It's good up there. It's bad down here. And then, all the scenes of, they go through the slum and the drug houses and stuff. You don't need anything but what's on the screen. And the guy he walks through the scene, and there's so much that happens that's just not narrated. It's like one time I watched Blade Runner. Have you ever seen Blade Runner movie? But then they did a director's cut, and basically the difference is there's no narration. And I thought it felt like a better movie. I don't know. That's kind of.
Well, there's the iconic narration from Blade Runner, which is towards the beginning, right? He says something like, "Dead fish, sushi. That's what my ex-wife called me."
Yeah, you're like,
it's like this was not needed. I don't.
What's going on there? Yeah. I remember watching the director's cut of that, just as a quick aside, and thinking, why did I like that so much more? I like that about Kurosawa. He never hit me over the head. I mean, there's some scenes where there's some blatant obviousness, but the scene speaks for itself. It's meant to be a radical scene, it didn't need anything more.
Yeah, it's nice to be respected, and that there's enough there that you can dig into. Yeah. I think, and I don't know if sometimes it's hard to know if Kurosawa was trying to say this or if it's just coming through in the movie. Because I think there's probably a lot that happened in his movies that maybe he didn't even realize. But it doesn't, like, regarding the communism and capitalism, and I think every parent knows this, that the solution to inequality is not for the lower kid to get jealous and take it out on the upper kid. That doesn't fix the situation, which is the error of communism, I think. But there is a problem, right? The inequality. I mean, you have people living in squalor. Well, it's just super easy for others. There does seem to be an issue there. Um, the solution in the movie, at least for the guy in heaven, is to give that up willingly. Um, and he does seem like happy. There's a few of my favorite scenes. I think I have some of the screenshots. Let's see if I can pull it up here. A few of my uh, and Zeb, you sent me these. A few of the great shots. But my favorite scenes, there's two of them. One is when they come back to his house and he's lost everything and he's just out mowing the lawn. And to see like this businessman who's like was super rich and he's out having to mow his own lawn, but he's happy while he's doing it. Um, and then when he finally decides to pay the ransom, he just gets to work and he's so working on that case. It's another point where he's not like anxious or tormented. He seems like alive in those moments. And then that moment where like he lights the guy's cigarette um unknowingly. I just feel just to see that freedom that he has after he's made that decision, that's inspiring for me.
A little bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
There was one movie that was in my head the entire time I was watching this. And I know it's not fair because then I don't know how familiar you all are with it, but Dirty Harry was the movie that was in my head a significant bit. The parallels of Dirty Harry is about trying to hunt down a serial killer, um, also involving ransom at one point. And so there's even a few scenes that I'm pretty sure were just ripped in some way, shape, or form. There's a scene where the killer is driving away in a school bus, and as he's driving away, the Clint Eastwood is standing on top of a bridge, and it's like the 8 millimeter film that they're filming as they're going by. There's just this guy standing here, and in that scene, Clint Eastwood jumps onto the bus, but there's just these interesting kind of uh, the dynamics of justice in those movies are very different, and that was something I wanted to also point out. This idea of in High and Low, the whole community is gathered around to bring justice about. Like the man willingly gave up his fortune for this innocent child, and so we are gonna support him and get on board. Uh, Whereas Dirty Harry is much more about uh, justice is not ensured. How can we get justice? It seems like the system itself is fighting against uh, there being justice at all. Like Dirty Harry has to fight or draw outside the lines to be able to get anything to actually happen. Um, yeah, the portrayal of justice I think was really interesting as I was watching this film.
Do you feel like the viewer or the audience comes away feeling like justice is served in this one?
Up until the very end, I think that last monologue is rough. Like there's a revelation that it's like, oh, like this is a man possessed. Like this isn't a like it'd be easy if he was just like an evil guy. But this guy's kind of like pathetic and he's hurt and he again he's you could say he's possessed by the system. Like what his greed or his hatred.
Yeah, I felt like it did not have a good resolution on purpose. The last scene, the guy just freaks out. things go down. Roll credits. Wow. Okay. Almost like this will continue in some way. I don't know if that's what he meant, but that's kind of how I took it.
Don't a lot of his movies end that way? I wonder if
Other
that's.
than one I've ever seen.
100%.
I don't think he's big on endings the way we think of his movies are very accessible to Western audiences. They always have been, except for the endings. I feel like the endings feel a little.
I think
He
we
used-
want too much closure. We want, and the
Rashomon has a pretty happy ending.
Hmm,
Everything is kind of tied neatly up at the end.
yeah.
Well, I think
he's
things
still-
are resolved. Things are resolved for Gondo. I think he's okay.
Mhm.
You know, he
Yeah.
first makes his decision that he's going to pay the ransom. Then he struggles later on the train. It's interesting. He has these moments where he's really struggling. He goes and takes a shower at his house. Like I thought about that as like a baptism. And then so he's made a decision. Then he's on the train and he's wrestling. You know, now he has his fortune and his future in his hands. And he was wrestling there. And I think he washes his face in the bathroom. It's like a second baptism.
Yeah.
He's an Anabaptist. And then, but then after he throws it out and the kid is saved, at that point, I think things are resolved for him. But for the guy who kidnapped him and the police and society, stuff does seem to be pretty unresolved.
And he washes his face after he throws the money.
Does he? Is it right after
Yeah.
he throws it? Okay.
Yep, right after.
It's like a sobering thing for him. Like he just
Yeah. I was curious, since we were going to talk about it, Zeph, like, what is it like being someone who owned a business? You know, the pizza business. Did
Yeah.
that play in? Could you relate to him as a businessman? Was there any?
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I was thinking about that myself personally, just because I sold my business not too long ago, and then it's not the same as what happened in the movie, but I sold it to some guys who mismanaged it, and now it's gone. So it was about 2.5 years ago. About a year ago, it disappeared because they just couldn't manage it the way I did, and so I'm still involved in my city. And I see a lot of people, and they know me through the pizza shop. So it's like a weird. I'm still somewhat well known in my town for a thing that doesn't exist, and everyone uh, everyone brings it up with a kind of they're careful because they don't know how I feel about it. You know, whether it was good or bad that I sold it. I mean, it was a good thing. It was profitable. I sold it for profit and all that, so good. But people don't know that, and so are you sad it's gone? And I wondered how Gondo would be after. I could see the same thing happening to him. Oh, I remember when you used to sell the shoes at the big place. Now you're at the little thing. What are you doing now? That kind of thing has happened to me. So yeah, I kind of was personally, I kind of resonate with that. It's not the same, right, as in the movie, uh, but I definitely had some thoughts like that. I don't know that it's relevant to the discussion too much. It's something that I experienced. I mean, you get to be known for the thing that you do.
It's like a child.
Yeah, yeah, and it's part of you. It's part of who you are, and so to let that go for him, you don't need to double down on it. But I'm sure it was really, really. You build something for 20 years. A lot of people can't really imagine how much you sacrifice to build something of that nature for 20 some years, and then for it to be gone in a couple of days. It's devastating, but he seems to be really resilient. You know, I think that speaks to his character. And I was trying to kind of meditate on what that might mean in the movie, what Kurosawa maybe was trying to convey, but that might have just been me reading something in. I don't know. You guys have any thoughts about? Because he's so resilient, he just starts a new thing, and something fundamentally different about Gondo than the kidnapper. They both sacrificed everything to get something. But one went high, one went low. Oh, no. So I think there's this little micro picture in there of contrasting those two men and their methods, but also the societal thing. And I haven't thought it through enough to see what exactly he might have been trying to, if he was trying to make a double play there.
Well, it's interesting, like the heaven and hell, they both kind of ping pong sort of between them. Gondo's at the beginning. He just he pulled off, he's going to have majority rule of the company that he's worked so hard at. He's in heaven. And then that all gets just totally threatened. Like he drops down to hell where he's going to have to sacrifice everything. Not even just for his own kids. Whereas then the other guy gets the ransom. Now he probably, he feels like I'm in heaven. I just got what I wanted and stuck it to the guy at the top of the hill. So like situationally, they kind of go between them, but then there's also what that's like internally. I think that's the interesting part for me is the internal aspect.
In a way, it feels like there's like a challenge being imposed on Gondo, right? Where he's willing to risk everything to be able to have control of this company. At the same time, he has standards for the quality of the work and the product that he's not willing to get it by another means, by compromising on that. And so he has all these ideals about the what it means to have good work and to do good work. And the other ideal is like he does want to be on top. He wants to be in control and to have these nice things and be able to provide for his family. And then this situation comes as like this is the challenge presented to him. Does he give it up? Does he hold on to his ideals of making good quality work, caring for people, or does he kind of give that up in a sense? That seems to be the other option to him, and so yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the movie's letting us know. That was the impression I got, is that the movie's letting us know that what he cares about is the work. He doesn't want to do second rate work, and he doesn't want to permit other people in the company's name to do second tier work. So so he might lose the castle he's built up for himself over the years, but if he's given room to do honorable work, that he's been restored in a way by the movie's conclusion. And he's got a goal of trying to take down the company that he did work for that's being run by bad people, I guess, by dishonorable people.
Yeah, because he gets double crossed.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about? I thought it was interesting that the investigators, the whole police precinct, was like, legally, we can nab this guy today and get him in prison for 10 years, but he has to die. So if let's not get him today, let's get him tomorrow and set him up so that he does double attempted murder, because we can't prove it, but he probably did it last time. So let's just try to get him to do it again, because the way to like honor what Mr. Gondo did is to respond to that by getting this guy the chair. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is that the kidnapper flaunts it. I don't think anybody thinks that everybody thinks that if they catch him, he's going to get a lot of time in prison. Even when it's not the kid they think it's going to be. But it's when the kidnapper says, "Oh, like I'm going to get a lot less time now. Like there's nothing you can do to me."
Yeah.
It's when it's then that the
Oh,
police are like, "Oh," at least that's the way I see it. Is like the police are then like, "Okay, you tried to get out of
Even
this."
back then. Yeah. Uh-huh. Over the phone earlier on.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the audience wants that. I think the police want that. And then Gondo lights his cigarette. It doesn't seem like he is that concerned. He's not like, get the guy who, get the guy who did me in.
Yeah, he doesn't have vengeance or like Gondo doesn't have resentment
Mhm.
like the kidnapper is driven by resentment.
Yeah.
And it eats him up. I wonder, do you think I don't no idea. Do you think Kurosawa was trying to say that Gondo had heaven inside of him and the bad guy had hell inside of him? That's why they couldn't in the end they couldn't escape uh their own makeup, something like that. Uh, I don't
That could
I
be.
think
It'd
that
be interesting. I don't know if they ever wrote notes about how they chose the title or anything.
but I think there definitely is like a Luciferian kind of nature to the villain. That he's very interested in tearing down what's up top. Like the fact that there is something that's higher than him is a threat, and it's horrifying to him. And the kind of Christ-likeness of Gondo of being willing to give up. Um, except he's a little bit more reluctant, maybe, but at the same time, like there is this like participating in a similar kind of sacrifice.
Yeah, it's a good picture of Gethsemane
Hmm.
in a movie.
Yeah, there definitely was this part. There was a scene where I'm like, oh, he might not pay the ransom. Might not pay, they might. Oh, that could be bad. Kurosawa definitely convinced me that there was a chance early on in the movie that he might not. I don't know what kind of guy he is yet.
Yeah.
It's early.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But he gives you permission to sympathize with him not paying the ransom
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
he first sets it up as, hey, like, look, this guy is awesome. He's, good quality work. You would want to buy his shoes. Unlike, as Americans, we know this. Shoes last 7 months, You're like, oh, good quality shoes, sign me up. This guy he's got principles. He's not just a businessman. Seems like a good father and husband, and he's getting double crossed. He has all these snakes around him. He is like this shining guy. So you have permission as a viewer to kind of you sympathize with, well, I can understand why he wouldn't pay that. The bad guys are going to win if he pays it. All of this stuff that he's worked for he's not going to be able to see that. So you definitely you can relate to that. You wouldn't paint him as an ultimate villain if he didn't pay it.
Mhm.
Right.
Is that why we get the first 10 minutes or so of corporate shenanigans? That's always been the part that's I don't know, has an asterisk on it for me. Is like why go that in depth into corporate shoe culture? Is it just to show he's a decent guy, but he's not perfect. He's still a schemer. He's still a businessman. He's just amongst worse people than himself. Because I feel like modern retellings would cut that whole part out. You would just show you would start the movie 20 minutes in. You'd just start with a rich guy. You'd never have that kind of interior. You wouldn't have that domestic picture into him with his wife You certainly wouldn't have the boardroom, convening at his house talking about how to make good shoes. Like that part felt like it was understood that his audience would understand why it's there, and it's a bit. I don't know if it's dissonant to me as a Western viewer, but it definitely it sticks out more than I think it probably did for his audience because it's not really. He doesn't feel like I don't feel like Kurosawa felt the need to justify why it was there. It was probably understood as that's part of painting the picture, setting the table for the story, but it was a little much from what I'm used to. You know, like if he's just a rich guy and you just need to see him, you just need to find out if he's actually a good guy as well as a rich guy. You could have started at 15 minutes in, but he doesn't. So that's kind of what I'm saying.
Well, it also shows him as somebody who has his kind of a foot in both playing fields, right? There's the sense in which he's standing by kind of this traditional Japanese ideal of quality and of
Mm.
making something that is good and will last. At the same time, he's the businessman. Like he is
Mm.
trying to play the game trying to play the game well. You also have him kind of egging on his son and his friends to keep playing cowboys, and the kind of violent imagery that keeps going on of this kid who's he has his lever action shotgun firing blanks, and he's just going one after the other into his friends. But there's this sense in which like the war was not that long ago. Like there are still, I mean, in the movie there are still like American soldiers who are kind of hanging around the bars and are are there. But it's these two dissonant kind of ways of seeing the world that are constantly in conflict.
You're right. It's got to be that. It's got to be his fellow board members are shysters at the level of American corporations in a way. People would feel that intuitively, maybe
Yeah,
his
because
first audience.
it's helpful for you to root for him. You're rooting for him, and then also the other thing it accomplishes is it holds the surprise. You know, we expect a surprise at the beginning of a movie. I can't remember when it happens in, Mel Gibson's film Ransom. Like a very similar plot happens in that movie where his kid is kidnapped, and I can't remember where it happens, but there's something about the surprise hits you more because you kind of get lost in the like, okay, we're talking about business stuff forever. All right, let's go. And then the surprise, like it kind of lulls you to sleep a little bit, and then boom, the surprise happens, and you're woken up, and then now you're really paying attention to what's happening in the movie.
Yeah, and it's not like another corporate executive who steals his kid. Which I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking that for most of the movie. I'm like,
Mhm.
which of these corporate execs steals the kid? Because that's just how you tell us. That's how you tell a story in Hollywood. Is you put all the chess pieces on the board at the beginning. You don't introduce the opposing queen an hour and 20 minutes into the film typically. So you're just thinking, of course, they know he's gonna stab him in the back, so they're gonna stab him first by kidnapping his kid and ruining him financially so he can't buy the rest of the stocks or something. That's where my mind's going, but that's kind of too easy and neat of a puzzle that already kind of resolves itself. You already know without even being shown who the bad guy is. So it's kind of a more advanced technique for that not to be the case and for him to not even he doesn't even introduce the motivation to the bad guy to the very end, much less even show you who he is till halfway through. That was a very challenging thing for him to do, I think. For the other corporate execs that have nothing to do with this kidnapping, I did Mel Gibson's movie, did the person who steals his kid were probably involved in his life at the beginning, I imagine. It seems like the easier move to make.
Yeah, he
Oh,
does show up. Yeah, he's part of the whole thing. Have you guys seen that movie?
no.
No.
Oh,
I don't think so.
it's it's an entertaining, fun to watch. I mean, most Mel Gibson movies are,
But then that's just going to be about simple betrayal, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I trusted you, you stabbed me in the back. That's a betrayal movie. This is far more than that. By doing it the way he did, Kurosawa, especially the, you need a little bit of that like disjointed misunderstanding. Like, wait, who did? Why did he do that? Because that's the way life is. Real life is. It's more like circumstances happen, and at first you're like, what? How? Why did that happen? What is going on? You're so confused, and then it slowly comes into focus. Whereas in a lot of modern movies, it's just like spoon fed. Here you go. Oh no, it's the bad guy. Here's the villain. Oh, okay. Now I know. And then you know how the rest of the movie's going to play out, and you just get so bored, turn it off. And that's happened to me a number of times. My wife tells me I ruin movies, and I've passed it on to my son. He does it to his girlfriend. Oh, I know what's going to happen now. What? Don't tell me. Like, well, then make a better movie. But Kurosawa, he does so many cool little things. Like I'm not sure I picked up on it, but wasn't it in the early part of the movie when wasn't he talking to the executives when the two boys ran through as cowboy and Indian, and then he gives advice to the Indian?
Or was it the outlaw?
What's that? The outlaw.
It's an outlaw. Yeah.
Wasn't an Indian. Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking that, but he gives advice to the outlaw on how to get sheriff. I thought that was relevant because of the juxtaposition of it with the meeting that they just had. I was like,
Kill or be killed, I think he says to
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
yeah, like it just slides that right in. It goes by. I mean, that scene's probably 10 seconds, but it's just juxtaposed right with the meeting of the corporate types. Oh man, sneaky, very cool. You just don't see things like that in modern movies. Maybe I'm just a hater of modern movies, but with having so many streaming services, I just fire things up, and it's, unless you're discerning a little bit, it's quite disappointing. Really.
yeah, we joke. It frustrated Julie for a while, but I think she ended up adopting my habit of, you know where the movie's going, so the skip forward 10 seconds, 15, 30, whatever. Click, click. We were at a movie. We were at a movie the other day in the theater, and I look over to her, and I'm just like, like, where's the skip button? This is the boring part of the movie.
Oh my gosh.
We're so bad.
Yeah, there's so much to be said. One of you guys mentioned a lot of it feels like a stage play. There's something to be said for long shots and just letting staging and blocking and good dialogue can just grip the audience for minutes on end. There's something to be said for that, and yeah, it's just another way to not to respect the audience and to not talk down to them by lots of extra cuts to highlight exactly what they need to see and not permit them to drift within the scene. It's almost like you're not trusting your own story if you need to do lots of fast cuts. Because oftentimes it seems fast cuts, it's flashy. It certainly keeps you paying attention, but it also restricts. It also doesn't trust the audience as much because it just kind of says, "Look at this now. Look at this now. Look at this." But if you have those shots, especially the first half, where you're just expecting them to keep both eyes feasting on just those compositions and just listening to dramatic tellings of those lines, it works, but it's quite a risk. It's riskier than the second half because the second half is faster and you get outside and you get a much wider variety of scenes to enjoy, and you get weirder shots. You get strange, like I don't know, low and high shot angles and stuff, and there's like Dutch angles and things. I don't, that's part of the tension of this film, of it feeling like two different movies, or at least two different approaches to movies smashed into one. But the first one is riskier in that sense, I think,
Yeah,
because it's just, you know,
it's nice when they respect you enough to let you be bored, to not have to let you enter in,
yeah.
um it's like Lawrence of Arabia, what is it, the first 3, 4, 5 minutes, just a black screen with music. Like as someone in the audience, I'm like, okay, good. I appreciate, that you would thank you for doing that to me.
But there's a couple scenes early on where they're first realizing, the weight of what's happening is settling in. You got the detectives, the spouse, the the father of the kid. They're all in the room, and then there's just these moments where everybody kind of walks off to a different part of the screen, but they're still there. They're still, somebody's facing this way, somebody's facing, and it just pauses. Everybody stops for a second and looks off in the distance, and then as a viewer, that's what you're doing too. You're just like everybody's doing that, and you're just thinking about, oh man, you're in that moment with the people, and they're all on screen. It's just very different. I've never seen a shot like that, I think, in a modern show, and it really worked. I mean, it worked for me. I was like, oh, I think that maybe that's what you're talking about, Matt. I'm less of a movie buff.
I guess that could be one of the benefits of the business meeting at the beginning, because it allows you to sit down in the chair and be bored. It's like, oh, a meeting. You have a chance to enter into the scene in a sense and check out a little bit.
It lulls you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Noah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Oh,
I had a question, but I'll save it.
Okay. I was just thinking about we've been talking about like honor shame culture on the side, and I know Matt, see you've been kind of dealing with that a little bit, but there's these interesting scenes where everybody will be in a room together, and there's the awkwardness of people. Not that they don't know what to do, but they're obviously not supposed to be in that room or necessarily around, and so they'll like purposely turn away, or all these like interesting blockings, especially like the police officers. Like they'll be seeing a conversation and it's like, I'm not gonna pay the ransom, and they're like, that's out of my pay range. I have an opinion, but I'm not gonna tell anybody. I'm gonna turn away. Let you have that conversation over there. Um,
Hmm.
it's one of those interesting kind of cultural dynamics that kind of pops
And
up.
they all feel what the right thing to do is, uh, and with an equal intensity, they know that, yeah, that they're not the ones uh, that need to say it. They're just going to stand there awkwardly or face away. They're just going to find their blocked positions within the room and stand there.
Yeah,
I want to
he
say
keeps them in the shot, though. I just find that interesting.
Yeah.
there's one scene where Gondo is talking to the police officers at a table, and the betrayer comes in. His right hand man comes in, and they are about to stand up and leave. They're like, okay, like we'll let you have this conversation. It's like, no, stay. He like walks behind them, basically like tells them off. It's like, get out of my house. I think he says it like 3 different times, like get out of my house. And the whole time they're just the police officers, like they're just laughing, like they're they're like, this is great. And it's just this weird dynamic of like, and I think Gondo comes back and like lights one of their cigarettes or something. Like he's like, I needed you to be present to see this. And it was just another one of these weird dynamics that are going on.
I didn't even notice that they had a response to that scene. That's funny. Wait, so what are you saying that the detectives saw who was the better man in that scene and was laughing at the lesser man?
I think so. That maybe it was more like that. This is the right way things are supposed to be going, right? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
like, um, trying to remember what the context of that was. Because I'm losing out where in the movie it was, but I think it was pretty late. I think he was saying like uh he had come back and was trying
Right?
to say
He had told
like
the
I'm going to
board
be the
already.
manager now, basically, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. He'd ratted his boss out, essentially. Like he left that night in order to let the board know what his plans were with buying the majority share.
And it may have been a later scene than that, even. Like I think it was the last scene that
Mhm.
right hand guy was in.
Oh yeah, where he's like, listen, I put in a good word for you. You'll have no
Yes.
power,
Yeah.
but you can still keep. Yeah, and he's like, that would be a shameless. That'd be a shameful job for me. Get the heck out of my house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
I love the bald police officer. That guy's awesome.
Yeah, I looked up his name because they kind of indicated that that's like a funny name and that
Hmm.
needed to be explained. And I guess it means dock worker or something,
Hmm.
which is why they're like, yeah, with these kind of situations, we have to work with people in that particular municipality at the harbor or something. So he had a nickname that means dock worker, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
he
guy
kind of
was.
stood out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember. We watched the making of. So we did a film school for our kids where I started showing them some Kurosawa and movies I like. Yeah, High and Low was one of them, and then we watched the making of. Um, I'm trying to remember if Kurosawa didn't plan for that guy to kind of stick out as much as he did, but just who the actor was, just kind of he lent himself to it. So he's like, "All right, we're going with it."
Really, that's funny.
Yeah,
Well, he's bald for one, so
Well, he has a personality too, right? There's the element of uh he doesn't say it all the time. He like finds an appropriate time, but he makes it very clear like he does not like the rich people, but he
yeah.
likes Gondo because of the way that he's behaved.
There was a
That's a
short
good.
scene where
Oh, sorry, he's up. Yep.
sorry, there was a short scene where there was two cops walking down the street, and one of them looks up at the house and says something about, "I can't stand that house, but it's still not right what they're doing here," or something like that. So it kind of showed that strata even amongst the police.
It seems like the police force, they're kind of like the chorus, the Greek chorus
Mhm.
that lets you know uh, where the moral tone is throughout the story. Like if there is a voiceover, the closest thing to it, at least, is what the cops are thinking when they feel like they can be honest with each other, which is interesting.
There's also that scene that's the the press, them talking to the press, which is another one of these interesting ones where like the community is all coming together, and the police almost ask them to lie and then say, "Hey, you can put it on us if you really need to. Like you can just say that we said this," and but they're also upfront about what that it is a lie, which I think is interesting as well. Um, but then the press follows that up and they're like, "But we can help you a different way, which is by trashing the shoe company
Yeah.
in public." And then they all laugh about it and they're like, "Yeah, like let's yeah, we hate them."
now
It's
you're the
interesting
guy
thing.
at the bottom of the hill. Get him.
Yeah, it's like society was the way you find society at the beginning of the movie is that everybody has kind of descended into this dog eat dog situation, and this extraordinary situation happens that ruins a man's life, and he responds to that with an extraordinary action that leads the entire community, even the nation, even to respond to that with extraordinary actions on their own behalf. Like the press corps voluntarily makes an extraordinary act, and the police force repeatedly. Like they keep doing things they don't have to do because they feel like there's a higher rule that they need to follow in light of this that was demonstrated by Dr. Gondo, which is that's fascinating. Kurosawa does that a lot.
I think the hard part on the other end is like we end with the death sentence, and there's a certain element that comes with that where it's like, uh, uh, is this justice? Like, is this making anything better? Or, um, yeah, he did kill a person, so I mean that, you know,
Right. Well, it's weird in the end. Gondo actually says to him, "There's no reason why we need to hate each other," or something like that. He almost is trying to reach out to the guy, and then the guy just goes crazy.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to make of that because it's right at the end. There's no time to process it. You know, that roll credits. Oh man.
Yeah, you're tempted to think he just ran out of film stock. You know, he's like, that's all we had on the reel. So it's kind of a
I feel
smack.
like yeah, I think there's an element of like what's going to solve this is the question. Because like this was a good way of it playing out, but like this guy built up a resentment based off of seeing a house on a hill, a new house, right? Like there is a representation there as well.
and
Like
the
what?
mess of society, and like
Mhm.
he's in a big city. This probably isn't happening out in the country on a farm.
No.
Could be. I mean, it's a very modern Western house. So even Kurosawa, a lot of times in his mid-century movies, will have. I might be reading into it too much, so take this with some salt. But there's still like paper dividers and stuff in a lot of modern expensive homes in the period and in his movies, but I don't see any of that in this one. It's
Mhm.
thoroughly all in mid-century modern. You know, any of us would be completely comfortable there. The bedrooms, probably, though we don't see them, probably had
Well,
Western
large
style.
glass windows.
They had glass windows. You know,
Yeah.
so it could be some of that. Like he's like the tax collector. He's like the sellout to our culture in a way. And yet here he is demonstrating um, Japanese style virtue of self-sacrifice. Shinto like, no less. I think we cracked it, guys.
There's another connection that came to my mind with Dirty Harry too was just uh the way the villain or the is portrayed is this um in this movie the guy basically says I'm going to get away with 15 years maximum, um and then he gets caught, and then the police basically say we're going to let him go, and then we're going to kind of wait and snatch him at the last second. In the Dirty Harry movie, like I want to say just over halfway through the film, the serial killer gets caught, and uh, Dirty Harry is trying to find this missing girl that was being held hostage, and so he tortures him in the middle of a football field to get the answer out of him, and it ends up that the girl is dead, like she was kind of buried underground with like no air, uh, but because of that, there's a whole scene where it's like, don't you know what the Fifth Amendment is? But the guy gets let off just free, and so uh, Clint Eastwood is kind of watching him, trying to make sure, like, is there any way I could snatch him because he's going to try to kill again. Um, it's a little bit more cynical in that one, but again, these like interesting connections that was like all the way through the movie. I was like, this is fascinating. It's not the same movie by any means, but the conversation is interesting in itself.
Wonder what year was that?
That was 73, I think.
73. It's about 10
Well,
years.
not the first time that Clint Eastwood is involved in a Kurosawa
71.
ripoff, though.
I
Right?
was gonna say, yeah.
It's
Huh?
Fistful of Fistful of Dollars is a
Yojimbo.
scene for scene kind of, you know,
Well,
rip-off
they had to
of-
settle it in court. Like, I think they had to admit that it was. So
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say it was
Legally?
a
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
You know, and one other last thing to mention is I always think it's fascinating to look at what cinema in Japan was doing. I don't know that much about this, but I know a little bit of goodies about uh, Japan being fascinated by noir in the 60s when America went through that in the 30s and 40s.
Mhm.
So to be captivated by that style of storytelling and particular of that style of cinema in black and white, you know, 20 to 30 years later when they have better film stock, they actually Fujifilm legally um, wasn't selling outside of the US. So they actually the top tier stock they kept domestic and never sent overseas. So you won't find anything from the period. The best film stock in the world was coming from Japan, and they were just making their own movies with it. So even though so in a way you could say the highest fidelity noir film that we have comes from Japan from this period because they were all in on the genre those kind of gritty gumshoe detectivizing uh Kurosawa made like 4 or 5 of them, but many directors played in that space and they made it with stuff that didn't really need to be restored by modern standards even by the time DVDs were coming out because it was so high quality. What was happening in Japan, I mean, what was happening in Hollywood at the same time just doesn't even compare. It's just they were 20 years behind in the West, which is funny. But it's interesting to see, you know, where the world was, much less Japan, by the 60s, by the 50s and 60s, obviously we all know is an entirely different world than where people were, you know, in the West in the 30s and 40s. You know, so they had an addition to noir. They're not just looking at post uh, Great Depression, you know, kind of New York City and stuff in L.A. They're thinking post World War II. They're thinking post World War II. You know, so that's their gritty, cynical backdrop that they get to tell their story in, and it's a war that they lost. So it's maybe that could be one
And
reason.
they can't say that they were in the right either. That's also a part of it, where
Yep.
there is no room for them to even kind of say
They're not allowed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to always have your face rubbed in it, which is another kind of
Mhm.
aspect of this. My friend while watching High and Low was mentioning all the corrugated metal everywhere and talking about like
Yeah.
he made the connection to the fire bombs, especially in that area,
That's good. Yeah.
and how there's all these kind of quick construction. Like everything is relatively new or it's completely ramshackle and broken.
And where does heroin come from? Does that come from the Gaijin? I'm pretty sure it does. Does it come from Japan? So there's that too. It's all those things that he's playing with. You can feel that there's tension and resentment or like just negotiating what identity can look like and what dignity for a people can look like post World War. And yeah, and this genre is probably a better, it's not the original setting for this genre, but in a way it's just a more fertile setting. I think they do it better than what we did in Hollywood in the 30s and 40s. We just debuted it, but we did it with poor quality film stock and we didn't have as much depression and guilt and shame to navigate. So
and we didn't have a Mifune.
yeah. Yep.
Um, Noah, what Kurosawa movies do you talk about on your channel?
Oh, I went over Rashomon, and then I
Okay.
went over Ikiru. I think those are
Okay.
the two I've done videos about, or have discussed in one way or another.
And I think Rashomon. I'm trying to remember if it's free on YouTube right now.
I think
But,
they're all free on YouTube, or almost all of
free
them
on-
are free.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. It's a good time right now.
Yeah, Akira Kurosawa is. I was going through the YouTube catalog of things that are free, and it was pretty impressive. Like there's a lot of good movies available. Now
So
you
being-
just suggested Seven Samurai is on my recommended page. Sorry, Zeb.
I was just gonna say, being a person who this is the first one I've watched, what would you guys recommend I watch next in the Kurosawa
What do you like?
collect? Oh, I like all kinds of stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed this movie just because of the, you know, the depth.
This is not usually where people start.
No, I'm sure not.
Not with High and Low, but
It's a good
These two
start.
solid ones are. Rashomon is really good.
Rush.
It's not too long.
Ikiru and Seven Samurai. Those are the only ones I've ever heard of, other than Time Loan.
Then
Akira-
Yojimbo.
Very similar in a way, because it's about a guy who's just kind of adorable, the result, a man of his time, and then he just kind of flowers into he transcends that situation. And it plays with the Western cultural, the decadence.
do you watch movies with your son?
No, my kids only watch phones. I can't
Okay.
get them to watch anything bigger than a phone screen.
I have a good Minecraft video for you.
Yeah, Yojimbo's entertaining, so that's a fun
Okay.
one. That's a fun one.
is.
Just
I might be able to draw them in if I.
It's
the right
it's a
one.
very like. There's a reason why I got turned into a Western. Like
Okay.
it's very much in that style.
My birthday's coming up. I could twist their arm. Say, hey, so I want to do it on my birthday. We're watching this movie. Let's see. Maybe I'll do that. So you
My
think if I
favorite-
do that, go for Yojimbo?
for entertainment.
Yeah,
Like
Especially-
Akira. Yeah, Akira's more meaningful. Rashomon's I think more interesting. Like, to chew on. Yojimbo, I'm not sure there's any huge deep message in Yojimbo. But it's very well done, and he's a great character to watch. So the main character in this movie, I think I maybe said this in our chat. So I just went and got these VHSs of Kurosawa, just popping them in. I don't know anything. And I think I'd seen 3 of them that had Toshiro Mifune as the main character, and I didn't realize it was the same actor. So I think I'd seen High and Low, Stray Dog, and Seven Samurai, and he's in all 3 of those. And afterwards, I was, what? That's the same guy? That's crazy. But most of them are pretty good. Kurosawa has a few duds, but he's also got a lot of really good ones.
if you want to watch him doing his own retelling of a famous Western story, you've got Hidden Fortress, and you've got The Idiot.
And
You've
Rob.
got Dostoevsky's The Idiot, and then you've got Hidden Fortress is Macbeth, right? No, it's the other one. When the old guy
I know
goes-
Ron is King Lear.
Ron is King Lear. There's a third one.
Yeah.
He loved
Hidden
Western.
Fortress.
He loved Western literature and Western movie, like Westerns, old Westerns. So he was inspired by Westerns, pulled a lot of that into the samurai world, and then Hollywood copied him.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, it was a spaghetti Western. It was the Italians who copied him.
That's true. Yeah. But then like Star Wars has tons of
Oh yeah.
admitted, I don't think George Lucas was trying to hide it. Kurosawa was a hero of his, but like tons of
He got
like
him work in the West again after he'd kind of fallen off and
right.
child.
But like C-3PO and R2-D2 are 2 characters from the Hidden Fortress.
Oh, that's
Just
right.
put
Hidden
me-
Fortress. If you want to see Star
Yeah.
Wars, He did it before George Lucas did in Hidden Fortress.
funny.
That's why I was thinking Hidden Fortress.
That would be funny with my kids because I'm always saying everything is Star Wars.
Yeah, there's a princess in exile.
Yeah.
There's a Toshiro Mifune is playing like a Obi-Wan Kenobi type character, maybe.
Didn't they? I thought I heard that they wanted to cast him. That Lucas wanted to cast Mifune as Obi-Wan. Is that right?
That's right. I remember that. Too on the nose.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for watching it.
Yeah.
Matt,
Yeah.
thanks for watching it again.
It was very cool. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Thanks for getting me to watch it.
Yeah. And if there's any more that you want to watch, just holler. You guys should definitely check out Rashomon and Akiru, and then go watch Noah's videos. Those are both excellent movies. So,
Very cool.
but thank you all, and have a good night.